Hello and welcome to Hopeful Conversations. I am Vicki Montague, and today I'm joined by Missy Maiorano, all the way over in America, with a gorgeous accent. I absolutely love this lady. And I don't want to speak too long because she's got such an incredible story to share with us today. So, yeah, I came across Missy a few years ago through a little piece of mind, which is where I trained to be a practitioner in the three principles. And I know at that time you were really, really struggling, Missy. And we were just having a brief kind of recap over your journey, and it kind of all started with waking up suddenly one morning covered in hives, right?
Yeah.
Which is like not what anyone wants to wake up to. And yeah, I wonder if you can just kind of take us from there. Like, what was going on before that moment? Like,
Yeah.
was there anything that sort of, did you have any health conditions or anything before that? And then, like, the moment you woke up with this kind of different reality, and then what happened from there?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Vicki. I think you're the one with the lovely accent. I could listen to you talk all day long. So yeah, this started late 2017. I would have described myself before that morning I woke up in November. It was November 3rd. I remember it very well.
Wow.
I would have described myself as completely healthy. I was a runner. I had done half marathons. Um, Worked full time. I was an elementary school teacher, very involved with my own children and all their activities. Yeah, I would have just said from the outside, my life was pretty much everything I dreamed it would be. And at the same time, underlying all that, I can say now, looking back, I had a lifetime of perfectionism, which is, anxiety. Just a
Yeah.
very fancy word for anxiety, perfectionism. I was always striving, always pushing, always sucking it up if I felt bad, just power through, stiff upper lip. I could have easily been a Brit. Um, and so, yeah, I think for the first 47 years of my life, I would have described it at the time as just really good, really healthy. Uh, and then I woke up on November 3rd, 2017, covered in hundreds of hives, like itchy, big red welts. So at the time, honestly, I didn't think too much about it. I thought, oh, I must have had an allergic reaction to something. I didn't even have a doctor. I had to find a doctor because
Wow.
I just never have needed a doctor except for having babies. And so I found a doctor who could take me in, and she kind of blew it off. Then I went to specialist. Fast forward, it turned into chronic hives, which means hives for no reason. I had no allergies. Um, I went down a very dark path pretty quickly. I was kind of surprised how quickly I sort of fell off the cliff, became very depressed because I was essentially told, this is your new reality. Get used to it.
So, did you have literally had hives all the
All
time?
over. I would have hives different places all of the time. They wouldn't stay, like hives by nature don't stay. It's not like a mosquito bite. Like hives are constantly chronic hives. The way they work is they just like appear, disappear, reappear. Like it's a constant hives. Like even sitting in the doctor's office that first day, my doctor called in other doctors to come watch the show of
Wow.
like hives on my forehead disappearing, but then reappearing on my neck, disappearing, reappearing on my palms of my hands, my eyelids, my torso, soles of my feet. I mean, I was covered in hives uh, every day for most of every day. And this went on and on and on. I went to so many specialists. Every specialist kind of just shrugged their shoulders and said, you're sorry. You're on your own. We can give you some really powerful drugs to basically shut your system down. I tried that twice, where they first time I did it sort of voluntarily, they injected me with some really powerful drugs and it shut my hives down for 2 weeks. It was wonderful. The second time was involuntary. Now I know what my rights are. I probably wouldn't have taken it, but I was told I had no choice the second time. It was an emergency situation. About a month into my hives, I was giving a presentation, which at the time I loved giving presentations. It wasn't a source of stress or anything. That was just where I thrived. And I was giving a large presentation, and in the middle of my presentation, my lips and face started swelling up like a cartoon character or balloon. My face became quite unrecognizable. And so I went to the emergency department, and they said I had no choice, which I can understand. They said they thought I was going into anaphylactic shock. So they pumped me full of lots of drugs intravenously and shut my system down. And so the hives went away again completely for another week, but only because they really just shut down my immune system. And then after that, I just said, no more drugs. I don't want more drugs. Just let me suffer. And suffer I did. I lost 30 pounds that I did not need to lose. I was quite painfully thin. You would never know it now looking at me. But I was very thin, very depressed. I didn't want to eat. I rarely ate. I ate literally to keep myself alive. That was it. I hated eating. I didn't want to really participate in life. I had 3 kids. I still have 3 kids, but I needed to parent 3 children. I mean, they were older, but still I really sort of withdrew very much from life. So fast forward, so 2018, I think, was really my year of suffering, just deep suffering physically. As I told you, as when we first were chatting, I bought myself like this special brush, this like wire brush, so that I could scratch my skin the hives were, I would have taken pain, any amount of pain over the degree of itching of these hives. It was, I think, indescribable, the itch. And so I would scratch and bleed and scab and scar. I destroyed clothes. I destroyed bed sheets, just from all the scratching and all the bleeding. So 2018, I would say, was kind of a rough year, and with hives and swelling. I lived in a lot of fear because I didn't know when the swelling would happen. And it was the kind of swelling I would always say would scare small children.
Is this the lips and
swelling, lip swelling sometimes.
Was it just on the face, or were other parts affected?
Yeah,
as well?
just my face. Mostly my lips would swell up very large. Like it just looked funny. And occasionally like my jawline would swell up. Or like one cheek would swell up. Oh, a couple times, maybe 3 times, my left eye swelled shut. So I just had one eye.
And there was no trigger. It was not like anything that you could, it just happened.
Just happened. Oh. So I really was afraid to go out because I didn't know when it would happen. And it did. It happened like in soccer games. I would just be sitting at one of my daughter's soccer matches and something would swell. I was at a dinner party one night and my lips swelled up very largely. Like, because there was no way to predict it, I just was terrified of everything. I was terrified to go to the grocery store or a coffee shop. I didn't want people to see. So I would say 2018 was just a really hard year. Then the very end of 2018, I found a Nicola Bird advertisement on Facebook. So I signed up for Little Peace of Mind, and that sort of cracked the door open a bit for me. Like, wait a second, there's a whole different reality to this I haven't considered. There's a different perspective on what's happening to me so it kind of cracked the door open, like, wait a second, Missy. What if this isn't as horrible as your mind is making it out to be? Because my mind was saying, you're hopeless.
Yeah.
Life is hopeless. My depression was very it felt very solid. Like, okay, this is the new Missy,
Yeah.
depressed and hopeless for the rest of my life. And I believed that story. And so a little peace of mind, that's where I first met you and some lovely people. Nicola was beautiful and amazing and kind of pushed open that door for me and had me sort of question. And then that sort of led into January. I joined Little School of Big Change with Amy Johnson. And I think at that point, Nicola had sort of primed me, like cracked the door open. So I was ready, like, okay, I'm ready to hear something even more, even bigger that Nicola had like prepped me for. Like, no, just be open. What if what you're feeling and thinking and the stories your head is telling, what if that's not the whole truth? What if there's more to see? And so I did the 6-week Little School of Big Change. And I remember the first time Amy had said something on a call. And when I got on the call, I was covered in hives, just covered, itching. And I was like, I had my camera off because I was scratching during the class. And then I don't remember what she said, but I remember something she said resonated. And there was this physiological shift. And I noticed in about 5 minutes, all my hives were gone.
Whoa.
Like my skin was clear. And I thought, what kind of voodoo magic is that?
What just happened?
What just happened? What was that? And then I didn't really think, beyond that, like, okay, that was wonderful and magical, but whatever, they came back.
Yeah.
And I resumed life with my hives. But I was open to the fact that something made those hives go away for like 30 minutes. They were just vanished. So I stayed in that class and kept listening to what else is on offer besides the stories our mind tells? What else is on offer besides those subconscious conditioned beliefs that have been passed down from generation to generation and strengthened by Western culture? And that really kicked open some bigger doors. And that's when things radically started shifting and the momentum picked up that I could not have predicted. And I went from there. I stayed in Amy's graduate community. I'm still in Amy's graduate community. But then I also joined Claire Diamond and her real community. And again, I felt like more doors were just kicked open for me. Like I just kept seeing new insights and seeing a bigger perspective of what the human reality is and how limited our intellect's ability to interpret reality can be. And really just started opening myself up to what else could there be? What if what my mind is projecting as the truth is not the truth? And so I started holding my idea of suffering a little more loosely. Started holding the idea of hives a little more loosely. Like, what if this is a gift in disguise? And then I didn't give it to my intellect to solve or answer. Just, what if this is something more than hives and lip swelling? And then once I joined Claire's courses and was sort of taking those in tandem with Amy's graduate community, so much more opened up about just sort of my mind's idea of who I am, my mind's idea of separation, my mind's idea of the miracle of life and things that we just can't necessarily see or experience with our 5 senses. I really just opened up more to what is it that's unknown versus this teeny little realm that is known. And as I saw more and more of this what if space that I call it, like living in the what if without answering, but just living in the what if, I kept seeing longer stretches of no symptoms. and then they would come back.
Mm.
But when they would come back, both the hives and the swelling would come back. And instead of fighting against it and hating it, I would just be curious, like, okay, there must be something else to see. I'm just going to sit with the hives. I'm just going to be itchy. I'm just going to scratch the hell out of my skin and see what else opens up. And the longer I just sort of stayed open and curious, like an anthropologist, instead of judgmental, truly just more in life opened up, and more old belief systems, old conditioned beliefs that were not serving me fell away. I kind of saw through them. And then in November 2019, as so much was shifting, I will never forget, I was in Claire's class. I think it was my second time through Real, which is like her flagship 4-week course. And she was really challenging me, like really pushing the limits of what I knew, like in a good way, but like, no, Missy, like go beyond that. Like really, I don't know the words for it, but like shutting me down in terms of me insisting on what is real and true. And her saying, no, 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 push further. And then like what you and I always say, do the thing, Missy, do the thing. When I would be afraid, and she would say, do the thing lovingly. And I remember it was that November 2019, I had my worst outbreak of my whole life. I literally thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to die. You can't die of hives. But my mind was like, you're going to die. This is the worst. And yet something in me knew, sit with this. Just stay in this, even though it is the worst. And I did even reach out to my doctor and just say, I just want someone to be aware that this is literally the worst hives experience I've ever had in my life. It's the worst swelling. I mean, I had both jaw lines swollen. My tongue was swollen.
Oh.
My lips were swollen. Like it was challenging to speak. And she said, really, your only recourse is to do the big guns, like the injections, and let's shut your immune system down.
Yeah.
And then I just said, no. I want to see what opens up in this, which, you know, who knows if that was crazy or not. And then that was the end of that. When that cleared, it took like a week for all that to clear up. And then that was the end of that. And that was, this November will be 3 years. Like that was it. I kept going back to Claire, do the thing, just be with it. Don't push it away. Sit with it, not in a white knuckle way, but be with the hives, befriend them. Let them be there to teach you, to talk to you. Let them have a voice. And I was ready at that point to let my hives have a voice, let my swelling have a voice. Sort of just ask, what is it you want to say? What is it you want to point me to? Without answering, because then that's just the intellect jumping back in. And I would say that was sort of the end of that phase of healing. And then since then, it's been, you know, all new layers, like the hives and swelling and all that was gone. But I found fairly quickly that once that superficial layer of symptoms falls away, you really get the gift of seeing, wait, what are the other layers that have also been waiting for not just decades, but I think for generations. For generations, there have been things handed down that are ready to be seen in the sunlight, ready to come to the surface. And it's not comfortable at all. But you know, you just put on that anthropologist hat or that childlike curiosity hat and you say, okay, this is uncomfortable, but I'm ready to bring it to the sunlight and look at it. Give it some sun. And kind of the way I look at it is I like to give those layers of voice now. Whatever wants to be heard, I want it to have a voice. And so I think I am able now to sit with discomfort more readily, not always. Sometimes I still, of course, I'm human, so I fight it. But more often than not now, when those layers come up and say, hey, we're ready to be seen, I'm I sit with them. They're not personal. They're not about me. I see my nervous system is not about me. It's not personal. It's not mine. And when I really see the impersonal nature of what is arising, yeah, there's just this ability to sit with it and listen and say, what are you here to tell me? All right, let's do this. So sorry, that was really long, but that's kind of the whole story.
Oh, it's just amazing to listen to you. And I mean, there's so much in what you shared. I don't even know where to start to kind of pick up, given that, you know, we're kind of constrained by time. But what comes to me is like, there's so much kind of bravery in that. Like,
Mhm.
you know, even the decision to not take medication, it's like, you know, and there's absolutely, I don't want anyone to think that there's anything wrong with taking medication.
No.
Like either route is,
Yeah,
you know, we choose what feels right for us in the moment, and that's
absolutely.
and
Yeah. Oh no, I have
you
nothing against medication
yeah,
at all. Nothing.
and you know, for whatever reason, in that moment, it looked right for you to not go down the medication route.
Yeah.
And it's like there's something so brave in that, because so many of us will have discomfort and we immediately reach to get rid of it, whether that's physical discomfort and we take a painkiller, or whether it's emotional discomfort and we go and buy ourselves a piece of cake, or we go for a run, or we drink some alcohol, or whatever it might be. But we don't want to feel them, right? Like ultimately, what I'm learning more and more is that we just don't want to feel.
Yeah.
Like so much of what we do is to avoid feeling.
Yes.
We don't want to suffer. And in you know, in your story, whether, you know, and it wasn't like you went, right, I'm gonna just feel all this. There wasn't like that kind of cognitive thought behind it, but it was, I just think it's so beautiful. It's like that was where you were led. And
Yes.
we're all like led down our own paths, and whatever, for whatever reason, it took 47 years, and then you were led down the path to explore what's in the eye of the pain, what's in the eye of the suffering. Like, you know, come and feel, like the invitation
Walk
almost
toward
is,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Metaphorically, like walk the thing that feels like the trigger or the pain or the suffering. Like, why not just walk toward it? It's all fluctuations of energy anyway. That's all we're talking about. Fluctuations of energy. It's safe. But I think we have never been taught to feel things that feel uncomfortable. We've been taught you seek happiness and you avoid anything that is not happiness, which I think really does not serve us well, because there are some really powerful, beautiful gems, some nuggets of wisdom and gold hidden inside the discomfort, if we'll just sort of be curious or courageous enough to take a peek.
Yeah. And yeah, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, and the thing that I'm really seeing more and more now, that I'm working with more and more clients, and I tend to mostly work, well, I work with a lot of teens, but my adults that I work with are mostly people that come to me with help, whether it's a diagnosis or just symptoms. What I'm seeing, which is fascinating, so I can't wait to see how this unfolds more, is once the experience of the initial symptoms shifts.
Mhm.
And that might mean the symptoms go away completely. That might mean they just have a different relationship with the symptoms. It might mean the symptoms settle but don't go away. Could mean lots of different things. But once someone's experience or relationship to their symptoms or diagnosis shifts, what happens is, from what I can tell, the body shifts into a feeling of safety for the first time sometimes in their life. For me, that was the first time I think I ever deeply felt safe, like at my core, safe, which sounds wonderful, and it is, because that's our true nature, right? We are innately safe. But what happens, I think, as soon as that body gets that first deep sense of safety, I always like point to my belly, because for whatever reason, I picture this being in my belly. It's like all those subconscious beliefs and labels and concepts we've held our whole life, they feel safe enough to come up, to bubble up. So what happens as you stop having so much fighting and resistance to your symptoms or your illness or your diagnosis, and you feel safe, you start to see other things bubble up. And it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. You start seeing things in your relationships, your finances, your work, your like old belief systems start to make themselves known, and it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
So this isn't I don't want to lead people down this false sense of like, and then she lived happily ever after the
Yeah,
end.
this is really easy and
And we're
simple.
done. Yeah, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful journey of excavating.
Yeah.
And part of the excavation is it's uncomfortable, but you just don't fear the discomfort anymore. You see the discomfort almost with a little bit of like giddiness or excitement, like, okay, there's now, not always. Sometimes you're like, oh dear Lord, I do not need a bad day right now. I just need to work. And here's the bad day. Or, like you don't get to stop being human. I still have fears about things. I still have a couple phobias that like to pop up every once in a while, like, hello, we're still here. So
We're just waiting for you to walk towards us.
And there are days where I'm like, I'm ready to take a peek at that phobia. And then there are days that I am human. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm just, no, I'm going to just distract, whatever. So you kind of get to keep one foot in both worlds of being fully human and flawed. But then you also, in this conversation, get to keep one foot in that mystery of what if. What if what I am experiencing is just not even the teeniest fraction of what is available or true or real?
I love that, and I love the what ifs, because it,
Yeah.
and like you say, it takes us out of the fixedness of the mind. Like there's fixed, well, this is how it is and this is how it should be, and it's like, well, what if that isn't true? And I love that, because immediately for me it's like, oh, my shoulders are kind of like, oh, okay, oh, that's a nice idea. And then what I love is like, and what's possible from there. Like when those very fixed ideas are held less firmly, then what's possible? And that's just the coolest conversation, isn't it, that I know that you have with your clients, and I definitely have with mine. And stepping into the wholeness, the expansiveness of what's available.
It's phenomenal, isn't it? And when you get those glimpses, and I remember being fairly new, not super new, but 6-7 months into this conversation, and how I would have those big hits, those like jolts of insights that felt like electricity in my body, like, oh my gosh, that's possible. And now it's more just, little, I don't know, it's not the same, but it feels just as miraculous to have those very ordinary, everyday what ifs. Oh my gosh, what if this is not at all what it seems? And I love Amanda Jones was one that always kept saying to me, and I didn't understand it until it landed. Missy, the thing you're afraid of, the thing you hate most, is not at all the thing that is actually going on. This isn't the source of your suffering. This is the costume. This is the sleight of hand. This is the magician grabbing your attention over here saying, ooh, look at the hives. Ooh, look at the swelling. It was all just a sleight of hand so that until you were actually ready to look at the real show, you could just keep yourself busy with your symptoms.
Very
until
busy.
You were really ready to take a look at decades worth of unquestioned beliefs about who I am and how life works, and the whole notion of duality and separation, and all the things I wasn't ready for until I was ready to look in that direction. And hives and swelling were a wonderful distraction and also a wonderful pointer back home. And in the end, I do think that whatever our health situation is, whatever our diagnosis is, ultimately, and on one level, it's a pointer for us. It's a guiding light pointing us back home to question, wait, but who are we really at our core? What can we remember?
Wow, yeah. And that just seems like the most beautiful place to kind of end, because those questions are unquestioned almost. Like people don't pose those questions. They just, well, I'm this, right?
Yeah.
What if that isn't all we are? And I love that.
That's
and we could
beautiful,
talk
Vicki.
for another 5-10 hours
Days.
on that. And maybe we should have another follow-up podcast.
I would love that. I could talk to you for days. This was
Talk to you.
beautiful. I love sharing this story. I love sharing the whole conversation of what ifs. What else is out there? What's bigger than what our mind is telling us? That beautiful little narrator in our head. What if there's more? Thank you, Vicki.
Gorgeous. Well, thank you. And I'm sure that there'll be people who would love to connect with you. So if you can just let us know how, what you've got. I know you've got a lovely website.
I do, and I'll send it to you. So if you want to put it in the show notes, but yes, just Missy Maiorano coaching.com is my website. I've got a YouTube channel under my name. I've got a blog. I try to write, at least once a month or so. I'm not as prolific as I used to be since I spend most of my time with my clients, but I'd welcome anyone to reach out.
Yeah, and I highly recommend that they do. It's a beautiful conversation to be had. And I will put all those details in the show notes, so people can just click straight on those. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me. And I'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Missy. Bye.
Bye.